Hey there, and welcome to Crazy Pepper, the channel where drama sizzles and revenge burns hotter than ever. If you love jaw dropping twists, bold characters, and stories that keep you guessing till the end, you're in the right place. Subscribe and dive into gripping tales of betrayal, karma, and ultimate payback. Get ready for unforgettable moments and satisfying endings, only on Crazy Pepper. Hit that though, and let the drama begin. The cyclist came out of nowhere on Highway 101, wobbling into my lane like he owned the road. I yanked the wheel hard right, tires screaming against asphalt, and slammed into the parked Tesla with enough force to make my teeth rattle. What happened next changed everything. The Tesla didn't just crumple, it exploded. Not Hollywood style with flames shooting 50 feet, but a real explosion that sent metal fragments whistling past my head and turned the luxury sedan into twisted scrap in seconds. The smell of burning lithium and melted plastic filled my nostrils as I crawled out of my Honda, ears ringing. "Jesus Christ!" someone shouted. "Call 911-inch!" I stumbled backward, watching black smoke pour from where the Tesla's trunk used to be. Through the haze, something caught my eye. A silver laptop, cracked but intact, lying 20 feet from the wreckage. The explosion had launched it clear of the flames. A paramedic appeared at my side. "Sir, we need to get you checked out." "I'm fine," I said. But my voice sounded distant, muffled. My eyes stayed locked on that laptop. Something about it felt wrong. The Tesla's registration showed it belonged to a Margaret Chen, an elderly woman from Palo Alto. But this laptop had military-grade encryption stickers and a Prague customs tag dated 2 weeks ago. Margaret Chen had never left California in her life. At San Rafael General, they diagnosed me with a mild concussion and 3 cracked ribs. Standard stuff for a fender bender, except mine had involved what the fire marshal was calling an illegal battery modification that should never have been street legal. Meredith showed up while I was getting stitches in my forehead. "Isaac," she said, standing in the doorway like she was afraid to come closer. "I heard about the accident." We'd been married 8 years. I knew every expression she made when she was worried, angry, or trying to hide something. This wasn't worry. "Where were you today?" I asked. "Work meeting, downtown." She glanced at her phone. "I should go." "Meredith, I'm glad you're okay," she said, already backing toward the door. "Really glad." She left without kissing me goodbye, without asking if I needed a ride home, without even asking what happened. I stared at the empty doorway for 10 minutes before the nurse came back with discharge papers. The next morning, Meredith was gone. Her clothes, her jewelry, her laptop, all of it vanished like she'd never lived there. The only thing she left behind was a note on the kitchen counter. "Need space to think. Don't look for me." I called her phone. Disconnected. I called her office. They said she'd taken emergency leave. I called her sister in Portland. Rachel's voice was cold as winter rain. "She's dealing with some personal issues, Isaac. Give her time." "What kind of personal issues?" "The kind that aren't your business anymore." The line went dead. 3 days later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 12 words typed in courier font. "Your wife doesn't want to be found. Some marriages aren't worth saving." I read it 5 times before my hands stopped shaking. 23 days after Meredith vanished, she came home. I was sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal and reading insurance claims when I heard her key in the lock. She walked in like nothing had happened, dragging the same suitcase she'd taken on our honeymoon to Napa. "Hey," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Hey yourself." She looked different, tanned, relaxed. Her hair was shorter, styled in a way that probably cost $300. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Silk, expensive. "I know you have questions," she said, settling into the chair across from me. "Just one." "Where were you?" "Arizona. Private clinic near Scottsdale. For my anxiety." She folded her hands on the table. "I should have told you, but I was embarrassed. The panic attacks were getting worse." I'd lived with this woman for 8 years. She'd never had a panic attack in her life. "What was the name of the clinic?" "Desert Springs Wellness Center." The lie came so smoothly, I almost believed it. "They have a strict no-contact policy for the first month." "Part of the healing process." I nodded, spooning another bite of cereal. "Makes sense." Relief flickered across her face. "I'm sorry I worried you." "Don't be." I'm just glad you're feeling better. That afternoon, while Meredith unpacked upstairs, I called Claire Danley. We'd been friends since college, and after graduation, she'd become one of the best forensic accountants in Northern California. If anyone could help me figure out what my wife had really been doing for 3 weeks, it was Claire. Isaac? God, it's been forever. How are things? Complicated. I need a favor. We met at a coffee shop in Mill Valley. Claire looked exactly the same as she had in college. Red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, sharp green eyes that missed nothing, clothes that said professional without trying too hard. So, she said, sliding into the booth across from me, tell me about your wife. I told her everything: the accident, the disappearance, the anonymous note, the Arizona clinic story. Claire listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes in a leather-bound notebook. Desert Springs Wellness Center, she said when I finished. You sure that was the name? That's what she told me. Claire pulled out her phone and spent 2 minutes typing. Her expression grew more serious with each passing second. Isaac, there's no Desert Springs Wellness Center in Scottsdale. Never has been. My coffee suddenly tasted like ash. Maybe I misheard. I checked every wellness center, clinic, and hospital in Arizona. None of them match. She leaned forward. Where do you think she really was? I don't know. But you want to find out? I thought about the note in my mailbox, about the way Meredith's eyes had shifted when she mentioned the clinic, about the new dress and the expensive haircut. Yeah, I said, I do. Claire opened her notebook to a fresh page. I'll need access to your joint accounts, credit cards, anything with her name on it. And Isaac? This might get ugly. How ugly? The kind of ugly that changes everything. 2 days later, Claire called with the first piece of the puzzle. She wasn't in Arizona, she said without preamble. She was in Monaco. I nearly dropped the phone. Monaco? Like the country? Like the tax haven. Someone paid for first-class flights, a suite at the Hotel Hermitage, and meals at restaurants that charge $500 a plate. The credit card was in her name, but the payments came from an account registered in Prague. Prague, like the customs tag on the laptop from the Tesla crash. Who owns the account? That's where it gets interesting. The account belongs to something called VM Holdings, which is registered to a Victor Marin. Ring any bells? I searched my memory. No, should it? He's a real estate developer, luxury properties mostly. According to his website, he specializes in discreet accommodations for discerning clients, the kind of guy who builds houses for people who want to disappear money. And he paid for my wife's vacation. Looks that way. Isaac, there's something else. I found charges for jewelry, clothes, spa treatments, about $50,000 worth. This wasn't a business trip. I sat in my car outside the coffee shop for 20 minutes after Claire left, staring at the phone number she'd written in my notebook. Victor Moran's direct line, she'd said. In case I wanted to ask him directly about my wife. I almost called him right then. Almost. Instead, I drove home and watched Meredith make dinner, humming softly to herself as she chopped vegetables. She looked happier than she had in months. Good day, I asked. Better now that you're home, she smiled at me over her shoulder. I was thinking we could take a trip soon. Maybe Carmel? I know this amazing little inn. Sounds expensive. Don't worry about money. I've been getting some new clients, high-end stuff. That night, lying in bed next to my wife, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how long she'd been planning to leave me, and, more importantly, how long she'd been planning to come back. Victor Moran looked exactly like what you'd expect from a luxury real estate developer who operated out of Prague. Tall, expensively dressed, with the kind of tan that came from Mediterranean yacht trips. His LinkedIn profile showed him shaking hands with minor European royalty and posing in front of glass towers in cities I couldn't pronounce. But what caught my attention wasn't his obvious wealth. It was the way he smiled in every photo. Too wide, too confident, the smile of a man who'd never been told no. I spent 3 days researching him before I made the call. VM Holdings, Victor speaking. His accent was subtle, cultured, the kind that impressed Americans at cocktail parties. Mr. Marin, my name is Isaac Travers. I believe you know my wife, Meredith? A pause, then. Ah, yes, Isaac. Meredith has told me much about you. Has she? She speaks of you with great fondness. The words sounded strange in his mouth, like he was tasting something unpleasant. You are calling because I wanted to thank you for taking such good care of her in Monaco. The hotel, the restaurants, the shopping, very generous. Another pause, longer this time. I'm not sure what you mean. The Hotel Hermitage. 50,000 in charges to your Prague account. Ring any bells? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Perhaps, he said finally, we should meet in person. We agreed on neutral ground, a restaurant in Oakland that served overpriced fusion cuisine to tech executives. Victor arrived 10 minutes late, which I figured was calculated to make me nervous. It worked. Isaac, he said, sliding into the booth with the fluid grace of a man who'd never worked a day of physical labor in his life. A pleasure to finally meet. Likewise. He ordered wine without asking if I wanted any. Expensive wine based on the server's reaction. So, he said, once we were alone, you wish to discuss Meredith. I wish to understand what my wife was doing in Monaco for 3 weeks. Victor smiled that too wide smile from his photos. She was working. Working on what? Interior consultation. I'm developing a property in Big Sur, very exclusive. Meredith has exquisite taste in lighting design. $50,000 worth of taste? The wealthy have expensive preferences. I leaned back in my chair, studying his face. He was lying, but not completely. There was something about Meredith and lighting design that felt true. Why Monaco? Why not meet here? I prefer to conduct business in private, away from complications. Complications like husbands? Victor's smile faltered for just a moment. Complications like regulations. American tax law is very restrictive. There it was, the first crack in his facade. And Meredith helps you navigate those restrictions? She's very creative with financial structures. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Creative how? Victor raised his wine glass. Perhaps you should ask your wife. That night, I cooked dinner while Meredith worked on her laptop at the kitchen table. She'd been spending more time on that computer lately, typing furiously and closing windows whenever I walked by. How was your day? I asked, setting a plate in front of her. Good. Busy. She didn't look up from the screen. New client? Maybe, still working out the details. I sat down across from her, cutting into my steak with more force than necessary. Anything interesting? Just boring contractor stuff. Permit applications, tax forms. She finally looked at me. Why? No reason. You just seem stressed. Meredith closed the laptop and gave me her full attention. Isaac, is everything okay? You've been acting strange since I got back. This was my chance. I could confront her about Monaco, about Victor, about the $50,000. I could demand the truth and probably get it, along with tears and apologies and promises to change. Instead, I said, I've been thinking about our taxes. Our taxes? Claire mentioned some new deductions for home-based businesses. Might be worth looking into. Meredith's eyes lit up. What kind of deductions? Equipment, travel expenses, client entertainment, stuff like that. I pulled a folder from under my chair. She drew up some preliminary forms, nothing official, just to see if we qualify. The forms were real. I'd spent 2 hours at Claire's office that afternoon having her create legitimate-looking tax documents, the kind that would require both signatures but weren't actually binding. Yet. Meredith flipped through the pages, her expression growing more interested. This could save us thousands, only if we both sign. Joint filing. She reached for a pen without reading the fine print. In her haste to save money, she missed the key clause on page 3, the one that made her financially responsible for any tax liabilities discovered through audit, including unreported foreign income. There, she said, signing with a flourish. When do we file? Soon, I said, watching her signature dry on the paper that would eventually destroy her life. Very soon. The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mrs. Travers? This is Agent Jennifer Walsh from the Internal Revenue Service. We need to discuss your 2023 tax filing. I was in the shower when Meredith answered. Through the bathroom door, I could hear her voice rising from confusion to panic in under 30 seconds. There must be some mistake, she was saying. I reported everything. I always report everything. By the time I got downstairs, she was pacing the kitchen in her bathrobe, phone pressed to her ear like a lifeline. Yes, I understand. Yes, I'll gather the documents. How soon do you need them? She hung up and stared at me with wild eyes. The IRS is auditing us, she said. They want to see records for all foreign income and cryptocurrency transactions. I poured coffee like this was a normal Tuesday morning. Foreign income? We don't have any foreign income. That's what I told them. Meredith's hands were shaking. But they have records of deposits from something called VM Holdings. $50,000 routed through Monaco. VM Holdings? I frowned like I was trying to remember. Doesn't ring a bell. Isaac, this is serious. If they think we've been hiding money overseas, she sank into a chair. We could go to prison. The coffee tasted bitter. Perfect. Maybe you should call your new client, I suggested. The one you've been working with. Maybe they know something about VM Holdings. Meredith went very still. What new client? The one you mentioned, the permit applications and tax forms. That's just local stuff, nothing to do with foreign accounts. I set down my mug and looked at her directly. Then, where did $50,000 in foreign deposits come from? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, I don't know. The second call came 3 hours later. This time, it was for me. Mr. Travers, Agent Walsh. I understand your wife may have been working with a Victor Moran on some real estate consulting. Victor Moran, I let confusion creep into my voice. I've never heard that name. According to our records, your wife received significant payments from his company. Given that you filed jointly, you're equally responsible for any unreported income. Agent Walsh, I think there's been a mistake. My wife is an interior lighting consultant. She works with local contractors, not foreign developers. Sir, we have bank records showing wire transfers from Prague to accounts in your wife's name. Are you saying you weren't aware of these transactions? Completely unaware. A pause. Mr. Travers, I'm going to ask you to come in for an interview, tomorrow if possible, and bring all financial records for the past 2 years. Of course. Should I bring my wife? That would be advisable. I hung up and looked at Meredith, who'd been listening from the kitchen doorway. They want to see us tomorrow, I said. Isaac, I need to tell you something. Here it comes, I thought. The truth, finally. I may have done some consulting work that I didn't report properly. Nothing illegal, just oversight. What kind of consulting work? Financial structuring. For high net worth clients who want privacy. Privacy from what? Taxes, regulations, ex-wives. She was pacing again. It's not money laundering, Isaac. It's perfectly legal tax optimization. With Victor Morin. She froze. How do you know that name? The IRS knows that name. They know about Monaco, about the 50,000, about VM Holdings. I stood up, towering over her for the first time in our marriage. The question is, what else don't I know? Meredith stared at me for a long moment. Then she walked to the window and looked out at our quiet suburban street. Victor specializes in cryptocurrency conversion, she said without turning around. He takes dirty money and cleans it through real estate investments. I help him move funds through American accounts to avoid EU banking restrictions. And in exchange, he pays me. Very well. How well? $200,000 over the past 8 months. The number hit me like a physical blow. 200,000? It's sitting in a Cayman Islands account, earning 12% interest. I sat down heavily. Jesus Christ, Meredith. I was going to tell you after I hit $500,000. We could have paid off the house, taken that trip to Europe you always talked about, by laundering money for criminals, by providing financial consulting services. She turned to face me. The money comes from real estate deals, Isaac. Luxury developments in Prague, Vienna, Monaco, rich people buying apartments to avoid taxes. It's not drugs or weapons or human trafficking, but it's illegal. It's gray area. Gray enough to land us both in federal prison. For the first time since the IRS called, Meredith looked genuinely scared. What do we do? She whispered. I pulled out my phone and dialed Claire's number. Claire, it's Isaac. I need that favor now. Claire met us at a law office in Chinatown that evening. The building was old and narrow, squeezed between a dim sum restaurant and a shop selling jade jewelry, the kind of place that specialized in problems that needed to disappear quietly. This is Leonard Kim, Claire said, introducing us to a sharp-eyed man in his 60s. He handles complex financial restructuring. Kim gestured for us to sit in leather chairs that had probably been expensive 30 years ago. His desk was clean except for a single manila folder. I've reviewed the situation, he said without preamble. Mrs. Travers, you're in serious trouble. Meredith shifted beside me. How serious? The IRS has flagged your accounts for cryptocurrency laundering, unreported foreign income, and possible RICO violations. If they can prove you knew the money was connected to organized crime, you're looking at 10 to 15 years. But I didn't know. Doesn't matter. Willful blindness isn't a defense. Kim opened the folder. However, there may be options, such as cooperation. The IRS wants Victor Marin more than they want you. If you can provide evidence of his operations, they might offer a plea agreement. I felt Meredith tense. What kind of evidence? Financial records, communication logs, details about his other clients, everything you know about how he moves money. And if I cooperate? Best case? 2 years minimum security, full restitution, and a lifetime ban from financial services. Worst case? Kim's expression didn't change. 15 years maximum security, and your husband goes down with you for filing false tax returns. The room was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic on Grant Avenue. How long do I have to decide? Meredith asked. They want an answer by Friday. 3 days. We left the office in silence. Outside, the fog was rolling in from the bay, turning the streetlights into blurry halos. Meredith pulled her coat tighter. Isaac, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I know. Do you? Because I feel like you hate me right now. I stopped walking and looked at her. I don't hate you. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. Is there? We got in the car and drove home without speaking. In our driveway, Meredith finally broke the silence. I'm going to cooperate, she said. I have to. Good. Will you wait for me? While I'm in prison? The question hung in the air like fog. 2 years minimum, Kim had said. 2 years of visiting rooms and collect calls and sleeping alone. I don't know, I said, and meant it. That night, while Meredith slept fitfully beside me, I lay awake thinking about the chain of events that had brought us here. The Tesla crash, the anonymous note, the fake tax forms she'd signed so eagerly. Everything had been connected. The encrypted laptop, Victor Marin, the money laundering operation, it was all part of the same web. But there was one piece I still didn't understand. Why had someone wanted me to know about Meredith's affair? The answer came to me at 3 a.m., obvious and terrifying, because whoever sent that note knew what was going to happen next. Victor Marin called Thursday morning while Meredith was at the grocery store. Isaac, my friend, I hear you are having troubles. Word travels fast. In my business, information is currency. I know about the IRS, about the audit, about your wife's situation. I carried the phone to the living room window and watched our neighbor Mrs. Patterson walk her ancient poodle. Normal life continuing as if my world wasn't imploding. What do you want, Victor? To help. Your wife is a valuable asset, yes? Intelligent, discreet, attractive. Would be shame to see her waste away in American prison. She made her choice. Did she? Or did someone make choice for her? Something in his voice made me pay attention. What do you mean? Your tax forms? The ones she signed so willingly. Very convenient timing, no? Just before IRS investigation begins. My blood went cold. How do you know about the tax forms? I know many things. For instance, I know that Claire Danley has been asking questions about VM Holdings for several weeks. Before your wife returned from Monaco. So? So either you are much smarter than you appear, or someone else is pulling strings. Victor was right, and we both knew it. The anonymous note, Claire's investigation, the tax forms, it had all been orchestrated. But by whom? Who's pulling the strings, Victor? That is what I intend to find out. But first, I have proposition for you. I'm listening. Meet me tonight. Oakland Marina, Pier 7. Come alone. Why would I do that? Because your wife is not only one in danger. Someone wants both of us destroyed, Isaac. And I believe you know who. The line went dead. I spent the rest of the day thinking about Victor's words. Someone wants both of us destroyed. But who? And why? The marina was fog-shrouded and nearly empty when I arrived at 9 p.m. Victor was waiting at the end of Pier 7, smoking a cigarette and staring out at the dark water. "You came," he said without turning around. "I'm here. Talk." He flicked his cigarette into the bay. "6 months ago, I received an anonymous message. Very detailed information about American woman who could help me with cryptocurrency transfers. Address, phone number, even photograph. Meredith. Yes. Message came with proof that she had been doing similar work for other clients. Small scale, but professional. I felt the ground shifting under my feet. What other clients? Real estate lawyers in San Francisco, tax attorneys in Marin. Nothing illegal, just creative accounting? Someone was setting her up? Setting us both up. The same person who sent anonymous tip to IRS about our operation. How do you know? Victor pulled out his phone and showed me a text message dated 3 days ago. VM Holdings under federal investigation. Cut all ties with American contacts immediately. Sent from burner phone, he said. Same person who originally connected us? The fog swirled around us as I tried to process what he was telling me. Someone had orchestrated Meredith's involvement with Victor, then triggered the federal investigation that would destroy them both. Why? I asked. Excellent question. What enemy do you have with such resources? Such patience. I thought about everyone who might want to hurt me. Disgruntled insurance clients, maybe, but none of them had the sophistication to pull off something like this. Victor, that Tesla that exploded after I crashed into it. There was a laptop inside with a Prague customs tag. His face went pale in the streetlight. What kind of laptop? Military-grade encryption. Recent travel stickers. Merde. Victor ran a hand through his hair. That was my laptop. Backup files for all clients, including your wife. How did it end up in someone else's car? It was stolen from my hotel room 2 weeks ago. I thought it was random theft, but... He stared at me with growing understanding. Someone wanted you to find it. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was impossible. Victor, who else knew about your relationship with Meredith? Only 3 people. Your wife, myself, and my business partner. Who's your business partner? American woman, very smart, very careful, handles all domestic operations. What's her name? Victor lit another cigarette with shaking hands. Claire Danley. I drove home through the fog in a state of shock. Claire. My oldest friend, the person I'd trusted to help me investigate my wife's disappearance. She'd been behind everything from the beginning. But why? The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Meredith's car was gone, which meant she was still at her sister's house, probably crying into a bottle of wine and trying to figure out how to survive federal prison. I sat in my car for a long time trying to understand Claire's motivation. Then I went inside and started searching. It took me 3 hours to find what I was looking for. A box of old college photos in the basement. I flipped through dozens of pictures until I found the one I remembered, Claire and me at a party junior year, standing close together, her hand on my chest. We'd been together for 6 months before I met Meredith. Nothing serious, just college romance. But Claire had taken it harder than I'd expected when I broke up with her. She'd stopped speaking to me for a year until she found out I was engaged. Then she'd become the perfect friend again. Supportive, helpful, always available when I needed advice. Always watching. My phone rang. Claire's number. Isaac? I heard about the IRS situation. How are you holding up? Her voice was warm, concerned. The same voice that had comforted me through family deaths and job losses and every crisis of the past 15 years. I'm fine, I said. Where's Meredith? Her sister's place. She needed space to think. Smart. This must be devastating for both of you. Claire, can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you tell me you knew Victor Moran? Silence on the other end. Then who told you I knew Victor? He did. Apparently you've been business partners for quite a while. Isaac, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Cut the crap, Claire. I know everything. Another long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder. What do you know? I know you set up Meredith with Victor. I know you triggered the IRS investigation. I know you planted Victor's laptop in that Tesla. I was pacing now, anger building with each word. What I don't know is why. Why do you think? Because I chose her over you 20 years ago. Claire laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really think this is about college? About some ancient, romantic disappointment? Then what? It's about justice, Isaac. Your wife is a greedy, manipulative person who married you for security while planning to leave the moment something better came along. She deserved to be exposed, so you destroyed her life. I gave her exactly what she wanted: easy money and a rich boyfriend. The fact that it was all illegal wasn't my problem. You made it illegal. Victor's operations were already gray market. I just helped him expand into full criminal territory. Your wife could have said no at any point. I sank into my kitchen chair, overwhelmed by the scope of Claire's deception. The anonymous note, the fake tax forms, all of it. All of it? How long have you been planning this? Since the day you married her. I watched you two for 8 years, Isaac. Watched you become smaller and smaller while she took everything you had to offer and gave nothing back. You deserved better. That wasn't your choice to make, wasn't it? I've been in love with you for 20 years, waiting for you to realize what you had right in front of you. The words hung in the air like a curse. Claire, you're insane. I'm thorough. Meredith goes to prison, Victor gets deported, and you finally see that I'm the only person who's ever really cared about you. By framing my wife for money laundering, by exposing her for what she really is. I hung up and immediately called. Victor. She's going to disappear, I said when he answered. Claire, she'll vanish before the IRS can connect her to anything. Already gone, Victor said grimly. Her apartment is empty, bank accounts closed. Very professional. What about Meredith? What about her? She still committed crimes, Isaac. The fact that Claire orchestrated it doesn't change that. He was right. Meredith would still go to prison, still lose everything. Claire had simply ensured that she'd go down alone. Victor, there's something else. Claire said you were already operating in gray market territory. Is that true? A pause. Perhaps. What kind of perhaps? The kind where your wife knew exactly what she was doing, my friend. Claire may have introduced us, but Meredith chose to take the money. I closed my eyes. So everyone's guilty. Everyone except you. But that wasn't true either. I'd signed those tax forms just as eagerly as Meredith had. I'd claimed deductions I knew were questionable. The only difference was that I hadn't known about the foreign accounts yet. The federal courthouse in San Francisco looked like a monument to bureaucratic punishment. Gray concrete and narrow windows designed to remind you that the government held all the cards. Meredith met me on the steps, wearing a black suit that made her look like she was attending her own funeral. Are you ready for this? I asked. No. Inside, Agent Walsh was waiting with a team of prosecutors and investigators. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Mrs. Travers, Agent Walsh said once we were seated, have you decided whether to cooperate with our investigation? Meredith glanced at me, then at the lawyer Leonard Kim had recommended. I want to cooperate fully. Excellent. Let's start with Victor Marin. For the next 3 hours, Meredith detailed everything she knew about Victor's operation. The cryptocurrency conversions, the shell companies, the real estate investments. She provided bank records, email correspondence, and detailed descriptions of how money moved through the system. The prosecutors took notes and asked clarifying questions, but I could see they weren't satisfied. Mrs. Travers, the lead prosecutor said finally, this is helpful, but we need more than just information about Victor's operation. We need evidence of criminal conspiracy. What kind of evidence? Communications that prove intent to defraud. Records showing you knew the money was connected to illegal activities. Testimony about other participants in the conspiracy. Meredith's face went pale. I don't have communications like that. Are you sure? No text messages, emails, recorded conversations. Victor was very careful about electronic communication. Everything important was discussed in person. The prosecutor leaned back in his chair. That's unfortunate. Without evidence of criminal intent, we can't offer the plea agreement we discussed. What does that mean? I asked. It means Mrs. Travers will be charged with money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. She's looking at 15 to 20 years. The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. However, the prosecutor continued, there is one person who might be able to provide the evidence we need. Who? Meredith asked. Claire Danley. I felt my stomach drop. What about Claire? We know she was Victor's domestic partner. If we can find her and if she's willing to testify about the full scope of the conspiracy, we might be able to reduce misses. Travers' sentence significantly. But Claire's disappeared, I said. People like Claire Danley don't just disappear, Mr. Travers, they relocate. And relocation leaves traces. Agent Walsh pulled out a tablet and showed us a photograph. Claire getting out of a taxi in front of a hotel in Vancouver. This was taken yesterday, she said. We've been tracking her since she closed her San Francisco accounts. You want us to help you find her, I said. We want you to help us bring her back. She trusts you, Mr. Travers. She might be willing to meet if you reached out. I looked at Meredith, who was staring at her hands. And if I help you find Claire? Your wife serves 2 years minimum security, full restitution, probation. No felony record. And if I don't, she serves 15 to 20 in maximum security. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. What do you need me to do? Agent Walsh smiled for the first time since we'd met. Make a phone call. I called Claire from the Federal Building parking garage while Meredith waited in the car. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. Isaac, I wondered when you'd call. Where are you, Claire? Does it matter? Far enough away that your federal friends can't touch me. They have photos of you in Vancouver. A pause. Clever, but Vancouver is just a stopover. Claire, you need to come back. Help us end this. End what? I gave you exactly what you wanted. Proof that your wife was cheating and stealing. The fact that it came with legal consequences isn't my fault. You orchestrated everything. The introduction to Victor, the money laundering, the IRS investigation. All of it. I created opportunities, Isaac. Meredith chose to take them. I could hear airport announcements in the background. She was on the move again. The FBI wants to make a deal, I said. If you come back and testify, they'll reduce Meredith's sentence. Maybe yours too. I don't need a deal. I have enough money to disappear permanently. Victor's money. My money. I earned every dollar by cleaning up his sloppy operations and protecting him from his own stupidity. Claire, please, if you ever cared about me, help me now. The line was quiet except for the distant sound of jet engines. I do care about you, she said finally. That's why I did this. Meredith was poison, Isaac. She was going to leave you eventually, probably for someone exactly like Victor. I just made sure you found out before she took everything. By destroying her life. By exposing the truth. The fact that the truth has consequences isn't my problem. What about my consequences? If Meredith goes to prison for 20 years, I lose everything too. The house, my business, my reputation. Is that what you wanted? Another long pause. No, she said quietly. That's not what I wanted. Then come back. Help us fix this. I can't, Isaac. Once I testify, they'll charge me with everything they're charging Meredith. I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. Maybe not. They want Victor more than they want you. Victor's already gone. Private jet to Prague this morning. He'll be sipping wine in his chateau while we rot in federal custody. The background sounds changed. She was walking through the terminal now. Claire, where are you really going? Somewhere with no extradition treaty and beautiful beaches? That's not you. You're not the type to run. You don't know what type I am, Isaac. You never did. The line went dead. I sat in my car for 10 minutes staring at the phone. Then I walked back into the federal building and told Agent Walsh that Claire wasn't coming back. We figured as much, she said. Which brings us to option 2. What's option 2? Your wife wears a wire and gets Victor to incriminate himself before he leaves the country. I thought he was already gone. His jet filed a flight plan but never took off. He's still in the Bay Area, probably trying to recover assets before he runs. And you want Meredith to meet with him? We want her to call him and arrange a final meeting. Something plausible? Maybe she's panicking about the investigation and needs money to disappear? I looked at Meredith, who'd been listening from the hallway. What do you think? I think I don't have a choice. Agent Walsh nodded. The meeting would be at a location we control with full surveillance. Mrs. Travers would be perfectly safe. And if Victor doesn't incriminate himself, then we proceed with the original charges. Meredith closed her eyes. When? Tonight. The abandoned construction site in Daly City looked like the skeleton of someone's broken dream. Steel beams reached toward the fog-covered sky, and concrete floors stretched into darkness. It was the kind of place where bad things happened in movies. Perfect for a federal sting operation. Remember, Agent Walsh said, adjusting the wire taped to Meredith's chest, we need him to admit that he knew the money was connected to illegal activities. We need him to acknowledge that you were part of a criminal conspiracy. What if he doesn't? Then improvise, but be careful. If you push too hard, he'll get suspicious. Meredith nodded, but I could see the terror in her eyes. She wasn't built for this kind of thing. She was a suburban wife who'd gotten in over her head, not some undercover operative. I'll be monitoring from the van, I said. If anything goes wrong, just say the code word. What's the code word? Lighthouse. Why lighthouse? Because it's the first thing that came to mind. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Isaac, if this goes badly, it won't. But if it does, I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. The money, Victor, all of it. I thought I was building something for us. I know. Do you forgive me? I looked at my wife, standing in an abandoned building wearing a federal wire, about to risk her life to reduce her prison sentence from 20 years to 2. Ask me again in 2 years, I said. Victor arrived exactly on time, which probably should have been a warning sign. In my experience, genuinely panicked people are never punctual. He walked into the construction site like he owned it. Expensive shoes clicking on concrete, cashmere coat perfectly arranged despite the wind. Meredith, he said, opening his arms for an embrace. You look terrible. I feel terrible. She let him hug her, the wire hidden under her jacket. Victor, I'm scared. Of course you are. The American justice system is very unforgiving. They walked deeper into the building, their voices echoing off bare walls. In the surveillance van, Agent Walsh adjusted her headphones and nodded to the recording equipment. The money you paid me, Meredith was saying. Where did it come from originally? Why do you ask? Because the FBI thinks it's connected to organized crime. They think we were laundering money for the Russian mafia. Victor laughed. A Russian mafia? How dramatic. No, my dear, the money comes from perfectly legitimate real estate transactions. But the cryptocurrency conversions are perfectly legal in the European Union. Your country simply has restrictive regulations. This wasn't working. Victor was too smart to incriminate himself with vague admissions. Victor, Meredith said, and I could hear desperation creeping into her voice. I need to know the truth. If I'm going to prison, I deserve to know what I was really part of. You were part of a sophisticated financial operation that helped wealthy Europeans avoid excessive taxation. Nothing more. Then why are you running? Because American prosecutors don't distinguish between tax avoidance and tax evasion. To them, anyone who moves money across borders is automatically a criminal. Agent Walsh was shaking her head. Victor wasn't giving them anything they could use. The FBI knows about the shell companies, Meredith pressed. They know about the Prague accounts, the Monaco transfers, everything. Let them know. I've broken no laws in any jurisdiction where I operate. What about the laptop that exploded in that Tesla? The one with all your client files? Victor went very still. What about it? How did it get there? Who stole it from your hotel? I assumed it was random theft. But what if it wasn't? What if someone wanted those files to be found? Then someone made a serious mistake. Finally, some tension in Victor's voice. What kind of mistake? Meredith asked. The kind that gets people killed. In the van, Agent Walsh sat up straighter. This was more like it. Killed by who? By people who don't appreciate having their financial privacy violated? What people? Powerful people. People whose names were on that laptop. Victor, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Do you think the FBI investigation is coincidence? Do you think your husband's car accident was coincidence? My blood went cold. The Tesla crash hadn't been an accident? What are you saying? I'm saying that someone wanted to destroy my operation and everyone connected to it. The laptop in the Tesla, the anonymous tips to the IRS, your helpful friend Claire, all of it orchestrated by people who want us eliminated. Eliminated how? Prison, deportation, disgrace. Or worse, if we don't cooperate. Agent Walsh was typing furiously on her laptop, probably running background checks on Victor's client list. Victor, who are these people? Competitors. Other financial service providers who don't appreciate my success. You mean other money launderers? Victor's laugh was bitter. Everyone in my business is a money launderer, Meredith. The only difference is scale and clientele. There it was. The admission they needed. So, you admit that what we were doing was money laundering? Of course it was money laundering. Did you think we were running a charity? In the van, Agent Walsh pumped her fist. Got him! But Victor wasn't finished. The question, my dear, is what you intend to do with that information. What do you mean? I mean that federal surveillance vans have very distinctive engine signatures, and the one parked outside has been running for the past 20 minutes. The color drained from Agent Walsh's face. He knows. Victor, Meredith said, her voice shaking. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Just like you don't know about the wire you're wearing or the federal agents listening to every word we've said. You're paranoid. I'm experienced. The question is, are you working with them voluntarily, or did they coerce you? Because if you're cooperating voluntarily, then you've made a very serious mistake. The threat in Victor's voice was unmistakable. Lighthouse, Meredith said quietly. What did you say? Lighthouse. I said lighthouse. Agent Walsh was already moving, speaking into her radio. All units move in now. Suspect is aware of surveillance. But it was too late. Through the headphones, we could hear Victor's footsteps echoing as he walked away. Goodbye, Meredith. His voice faded. I hope your federal friends can protect you better than they protected themselves. Then silence. The FBI found Meredith 20 minutes later, sitting alone on the concrete floor of the construction site, crying. Victor had vanished like smoke, leaving behind only footprints and the faint smell of expensive cologne. He knew from the beginning, Agent Walsh said as we drove back to the federal building. The whole meeting was a setup. A setup for what? I asked. To find out how much we know. Now he has a complete picture of our investigation. And Meredith? Got us the admission we needed. Victor's on record acknowledging that his operation was money laundering. But he's gone. People like Victor don't just disappear. He has assets, properties, business relationships. We'll find him. But I could tell from her voice that she didn't believe it. At the federal building, they offered Meredith the same deal as before. 2 years minimum security in exchange for her cooperation. She signed the papers without reading them. When do I report? She asked. 60 days. Use the time to get your affairs in order? Affairs? What a strange word for the wreckage of a marriage. We drove home in silence through the fog-shrouded streets of San Francisco. Our house looked exactly the same as it had that morning, but everything felt different, smaller, temporary. Isaac, Meredith said as we sat in the driveway. What happens to us now? I don't know. Will you wait for me? The same question she'd asked before. This time, I had an answer. No. She nodded like she'd expected it. I understand. Do you? You can't forgive me for lying. For the money, for Victor, for all of it. It's not about forgiveness, Meredith. It's about trust. How do I trust someone who spent 8 months building a secret life I knew nothing about? You don't, she said quietly. You move on. We sat in the car for another 10 minutes, watching fog roll past the streetlights. Finally, Meredith unbuckled her seatbelt. I'm going to pack some things, she said. Stay with my sister until I have to report. Probably for the best. She paused with her hand on the door handle. Isaac, can I ask you something? Sure. Did you know? About Claire, I mean. Before tonight, did you suspect she was behind everything? I thought about the question. Had I known? Had some part of me recognized the elaborate nature of the trap that had been set for my wife? I suspected something was wrong, I said finally. But I thought it was just you having an affair. Would that have been better? Just a simple affair? Simpler anyway. Meredith got out of the car and walked to the front door. I watched her unlock it and disappear inside, probably for the last time as my wife. My phone rang, unknown number. Isaac, it's Claire. I almost hung up. Almost. Where are you? Does it matter? I heard about Victor's escape. Very dramatic. How did you hear about it? I have friends in interesting places. Like the people who wanted Victor's operation destroyed? Claire was quiet for a moment. You've been busy. Not me. The FBI. They think Victor's laptop ended up in that Tesla because someone wanted to start a war between competing money laundering operations. Interesting theory. Is it true? Does it matter? The result is the same. Victor's gone, Meredith's going to prison, and you're finally free. Free to do what? Whatever you want. Start over. Meet someone who deserves you. Someone like you? I was thinking more like someone who isn't facing federal conspiracy charges. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Claire, why did you really do this? I told you. Because you deserve better. No, that's not it. You had Victor's operation under surveillance for months before you introduced him to Meredith. You were planning to destroy him anyway. Very good. So what was it? A competitor trying to eliminate the competition? The government? Or something else? Claire was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. My father, she said finally. Your father? Lost his pension fund to a Ponzi scheme 15 years ago. The money went through shell companies in Prague, got converted to cryptocurrency, and disappeared into numbered accounts in the Cayman Islands. Victor's operation, Victor's predecessor. But same methods, same routes, same ultimate destination. So, this was revenge. This was justice. Your wife just happened to be collateral damage. Collateral damage that you created. Collateral damage that created itself. I offered Meredith an opportunity to make easy money. She chose to take it without asking questions. The phone crackled with static. Claire was probably calling from another airport, another escape route. What happens now? I asked. Now you rebuild your life, and I disappear into whatever comes next. The FBI will keep looking for you. Let them look. I'm very good at disappearing. Claire? Yes? I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I already found it, Isaac. I got justice for my father, and I got you away from a woman who didn't deserve you. Mission accomplished. The line went dead. 60 days later, I drove Meredith to the Federal Correctional Facility in Dublin, California. It was a low-security prison that looked more like a corporate campus than a place of punishment. All glass and landscaping and careful architecture designed to minimize the appearance of captivity. 2 years, Meredith said as we sat in the parking lot. It doesn't seem real. It's real. She was wearing the clothes they'd told her to bring. Plain jeans, plain white t-shirt, sneakers with no metal. Everything else would be provided by the federal government. Isaac, I know you said you wouldn't wait, but I meant it. I know. But maybe, when I get out, we could try being friends? I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and tried to imagine a future where we met for coffee and talked about safe subjects like weather and work. It seemed impossible. Maybe, I said. She kissed my cheek and got out of the car. I watched her walk toward the entrance, her shoulders straight and her head up. Whatever else she was, Meredith wasn't a coward. The divorce papers were waiting on my kitchen table when I got home. I'd filed them the week before, citing irreconcilable differences. There would be no alimony, no division of assets beyond what the federal government had already seized. After 8 years of marriage, we would part with nothing but debt and legal fees. I signed the papers and mailed them the same day. 3 months later, Victor Marin was arrested in a casino in Montenegro. The FBI had been right. People like Victor don't just disappear. They relocate to places with friendly governments and loose banking regulations, and eventually they get careless. According to the news reports, he'd been running the same cryptocurrency conversion scheme in Eastern Europe, using the same methods and the same shell companies. His arrest led to a broader investigation that uncovered a network of money laundering operations spanning 12 countries. Claire was never found. Sometimes I wondered if she'd really disappeared, or if she'd simply gone back to being the kind of person who blends into the background of other people's lives. The helpful accountant, the reliable friend, the woman who knows exactly how to solve your problems. I hoped she was somewhere safe, living under a new name and building a new life far from the wreckage she'd created in mine. But mostly, I tried not to think about her at all. 6 months after Meredith went to prison, I sold the house in San Rafael and moved to a small apartment in Oakland. The money from the sale paid off most of the legal fees and gave me enough to start over, which seemed appropriate. New city, new address, new life. I kept working as an insurance claims adjuster because it was what I knew and because the irony appealed to me. Investigating other people's disasters, determining fault, calculating damages, it felt like training for something, though I wasn't sure what. The work was different now. I paid attention to details that would have bored me before. The way people told stories about their accidents, the small inconsistencies that revealed larger deceptions, the careful construction of lies designed to extract money from institutions that existed to help people. Everyone was running some kind of scam, it seemed. Everyone had an angle. I got good at spotting them. One evening, in late spring, I was reviewing a case file when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a young woman with dark hair and nervous eyes. "Mr. Travers? My name is Lisa Hoffman. I'm a journalist with the San Francisco Chronicle." I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "What can I do for you?" "I'm working on a story about financial crime in the Bay Area, specifically about a woman named Claire Danley." My blood went cold. "I don't know anyone by that name." "Really?" "Because according to federal records, you and Miss Danley were in frequent contact during the investigation that led to your wife's conviction." "My ex-wife?" "Right, ex-wife." Lisa consulted a notebook. "The thing is, Mr. Travers, Claire Danley doesn't exist." "What do you mean?" "I mean there's no record of anyone by that name working as a forensic accountant in Northern California. No business license, no professional certification, no tax records. The woman who helped you investigate your wife's financial activities was a ghost." I leaned against the doorframe, trying to process what she was telling me. "That's impossible. I knew Claire for 20 years. You knew someone who called herself Claire Danley, but her real name was Sarah Chen, and she was a professional identity thief who specialized in long-term infiltration of financial networks." Sarah Chen. The name meant nothing to me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because Sarah Chen was found dead in Bangkok 3 weeks ago. Apparent suicide, though the Thai police have questions about the circumstances." The world tilted slightly on its axis. Claire was dead. "The reason I'm here," Lisa continued, "is that Sarah left behind a storage unit in Oakland with thousands of documents related to financial fraud cases spanning the past 15 years. Your wife's case was just one of many. How many others?" "At least 40, maybe more. Sarah Chen spent 2 decades systematically destroying people's lives, apparently for money." "Not for money," I said, without thinking. "Then for what?" I thought about my last conversation with Claire, about her father's lost pension fund, and the years of planning that had gone into destroying Victor's operation. "For justice," I said. At least that's what she called it. Justice? She was settling scores, old debts, old grievances, people who had hurt her or her family. Lisa wrote something in her notebook. "Mr. Travers, would you be willing to go on the record about your experience with Sarah Chen?" "Why?" "Because there are 39 other people out there who think their lives were destroyed by random bad luck. They deserve to know the truth." I looked at this young reporter with her earnest expression and her belief that the truth mattered, and I felt very old. "What difference would it make?" I asked. "The people she hurt are still hurt. The people she helped convict are still in prison. Knowing that it was all orchestrated doesn't change anything." "It changes everything, Mr. Travers. It's the difference between bad luck and conspiracy. Between personal responsibility and systematic fraud." I thought about Meredith, 18 months into a 2-year sentence for crimes that had been engineered by someone she'd never met. I thought about Victor, sitting in a Montenegro jail cell, probably still convinced that his arrest was the result of business competition rather than personal revenge. I thought about myself, alone in a new apartment, trying to build a life from the pieces of one that had been deliberately shattered. "No," I said. "I don't want to go on the record. But some stories are better left untold." I closed the door and listened to Lisa Hoffman's footsteps fade down the hallway. Then I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat on my couch, thinking about the woman I'd known as Claire Danley and the 20-year friendship that had never been real. Outside my window, Oakland glittered in the evening light, full of people living their own complicated lives and hiding their own elaborate secrets. I raised my glass to the city and to the dead woman who had taught me that everyone was capable of anything, given the right motivation and enough time to plan. "Here's to justice," I said to the empty room. Then I drank the whiskey and went to bed. 2 years and 4 months after Meredith went to prison, she was released on good behavior. I knew because I'd been tracking her sentence through the federal corrections website, the same way you might follow a stock you'd once owned. She didn't call me when she got out. 3 years after that, I was reviewing an insurance claim for a house fire in Marin County when I recognized the name on the policy, Meredith Penhaligon. she'd gone back to her maiden name. The claim was legitimate, an electrical fire that had started in the kitchen and spread through most of the first floor. Total loss, $847,000. The fire department's report cited faulty wiring as the cause, probably related to a recent renovation. I could have transferred the case to another adjuster. Conflict of interest, personal involvement, any number of professional reasons to step back. Instead, I drove to Marin County to see the house for myself